And then I welcome you to our little interview to hear how you experience the 22 days of grace, Joep. Thank you for making the time. And thank you for your openness.
Okay.
And I would like to start with the question of if there is something different now from before you started with the 22 days of grace, and if yes, what changed thanks to your experiences with the 22 days of grace?
Well, yes, things have changed, and if only for the neurographics that we made. So we created a few images in the process. So, and these images brought a sense of awareness. So I think that if we really were to talk about what has changed in the sense of have you learned parts of a new language or things like that, did I master a skill that I didn't master before? I doubt whether that is the case, but what it did bring is it did bring awareness around themes that I want to work on, need to work on, and it brought the it brought a map. In my own words, it brought a map of how and where I might travel.
If I may kind of dig a little bit deeper into that, like what do you mean with it brought a map, your own map on where you want to travel? Can you elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, I guess the process in my experience brought me almost literally a map, like you have a map that you use to travel in the old days, or well, you still have them in your navigation, because where you see the map with all its crossings and lines and stuff like that, and it brought that, and it brought in the process of the first day of the first time that we worked, you created your own map in terms of what are the themes that you want to work on, sort of emerging from the lines and the circles and the figures and the connections that you drew on a piece of paper. So that is what it quite literally did. That's what I also mean by the map that was provided, and that was then, let's say, there were additional maps made in the days to follow.
So if you wanted to describe that whole process that you went through in creating the awareness that you mentioned earlier, how would you describe that process and the value that it brought you?
Well, I guess the process, well, let me start with the value. The value it brought me was that it created awareness around the things that I wanted / needed to work on. And the 22 days, but for me, it's even beyond these 22 days, is that these themes are still there. Actually, today, I was confronted with one of the themes, which in my case has to do with work, and I was confronted with it again. And I guess in a lot of instances, or quite often, the time in between the sessions was really to get a greater awareness on these themes. Now, so that is one in terms of the value.
And if I may interrupt, and greater awareness, you mean a new understanding that you develop for these themes in your life?
Yeah, yeah. I think in my sense, the word awareness means that there may be something that, maybe I need to paint the wall behind me because paint is coming off, or I don't like the color. But it is unless somebody helps me to see that I can then start to get a sense of awareness. Yes, that needs to be done. What color should it be? What kind of paint should it be? How will it fit with the rest? What are the consequences? So that's what I mean with awareness.
Mm.
Does that answer your question? Okay. So in terms of the process, to me, it is it is really like creating a map in the process of drawing lines and looking at where they cross and what figures and symbols emerge. And you do that, at least that's my story. I did that in three different layers. So I had like an overall map of what I needed to do with work and with joy and with play and things like that. So that kind of gave me the bigger picture. And I don't know whether you're familiar with, or any of the listeners to this, with nautical maps, but quite often the nautical maps then have also enlarged pictures of the harbors that you'll go to. So on the bigger map, you'll find where you have to go and where you can go, and what maybe you need to navigate in order to get to these points. And then once you get to a harbor, the maps become more detailed, and you may be made more aware of where there are undepth, where there may be hidden obstacles and things like that. And that was actually the second map that we made. So we had a second session where we went through a process of saying, well, my own words, what are the obstacles? And just let them be. I mean, don't rationalize them. Just what are the obstacles? And you make a second drawing with the obstacles, but also with the second part of that image is to sort of remove or deal with those obstacles. Maybe not remove them, but how to deal with them. I know that Heidi, as a facilitator, had a beautiful word for that, which I don't know anymore. But I know I still can envision.
Charge it was.
Yeah. So that was the second step in the process, and again, it makes you aware of what the things, in my case, like how do I reduce workload, how do I increase the play and the joy, how should I go about it, and what are things that are maybe hindering me, and what might help me to overcome these. And then the third session was really, I call it like a little manual. It's like a little manual in terms of these are rules for yourself that you need to adhere to. And I mean, that is something that I feel comfortable with, as in my life I have a number of these disciplines, like getting up early, doing my exercise and my daily meditation. Well, and I guess the third drawing really was about that in my feeling. So that's why the process as a whole was like, I create an overall map to discover where I wanted to go. And then with the notion that some of these areas should grow and others should become smaller, then I got a more detailed map on what might hinder me and what would help me to solve that. And then I got some rules. Rules is a big word, but I got some ideas on on how I might do that. And that was something to be very grateful about, and to try and do that with grace. I guess that's the process for me.
Right. If I kind of taking one more circle in that respect, if I may, if you now would have to describe in one sentence or max two what you just shared with us, what was the value you got from these 22 days of grace?
I got to discover some of the key themes in my life now in a way that I found very helpful for me to deal with them. And in a way that honors the title of the program when it says 22 days of grace, and I don't care about the 22 days, but days of grace.
Thank you. New question in the same light. Who do you think is this program for? Who is best suited and gets the most value out of this program, in your opinion and experience?
I think that could be, that's a variety of people, I think. It's people, I think first of all, maybe it's individuals who seek to grow and develop the knowledge of who they are, and to come and discover some of the core themes in their lives. So that is one. Secondly, I can see people working in teams in organizations use this to create what I would call a collective understanding of where they are and where they might want to go. So it starts then to link to the corporate purpose, maybe vision and mission. Then really and from the additional perspective, and additional in the sense of not just looking at the traditional KPIs, key performance indicators of revenue, turnover, etc., but really looking at why question is it, why are we here as an organization or as an institute? And what is it that we need to do more of? What is it that we need to do less of? And what is hindering us? And what is helping us? What is frustrating us? And then maybe not as much from the, you could say that if you talk about colors, there's somewhat bluish perspective. Let's look at the facts and the numbers, but let's look at it from a perspective of more heart, if you wish, body and soul. But those people who are prepared to say, maybe that's a good summary, because that's for myself, that's part of the journey. If you want to go out of your head, and I'm not talking about let's go crazy or do something, but when you want to move and approach things not only from the head, but also from the heart and from the soul, you even wish a spiritual perspective, that's where I think it might be very helpful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Third question, again, in that line that you already opened now for us. Already the title indicates that, and you just mentioned it as well, 22 Days of Grace. There was quite a lot of spiritual approach or context in the whole program. Why do you think this spiritual notion adds value also in the organizational context?
I think we are in a phase in our lives and in our societies where what is emergent is that we're starting to understand more of the whole and to look at the whole. And certainly not for every company, certainly not for every organization. That would be way too much, but more and more organizations are looking at triple or quadruple bottom lines. They're starting to looking at planet, people, purpose, and then yes, maybe some profitability, and that is then maybe not only in money terms but also in other terms. So we see the rise of what is called B Corps, B corporations, who are looking at the greater responsibility. We see initiatives like that of Peter Koenig with his love in business. So I think there is definitely a movement that starts to honor the perspective of the whole. Now, some people feel more comfortable talking about the whole. I adapt my language often, sometimes speaking about the whole, but I think you can also talk about spirituality. I guess when things like these are happening, then there can be experienced or found or seen or argued that there is a link with the divine. So I guess that's where I link it to spirituality, whereby that would not be something that I would push, but I would invite people to experience because it's almost part of it.
And kind of one more slightly twisted my question. Why might it be of value to open up as an organization to this spiritual or wholeness dimension as you mention it? Why could that be of value?
Well, I think it could be of value because it enriches what you are doing. And you could make this almost very, from a traditional perspective, looking at adding value. So there are things that I can look at it from the head, and I can argue that, but it's a limited perspective. So if I look at friendship, this is just as an example. When I look at friendship, and I look at it just from the explanation of what friendship is and the reasoning in the head, and as to why I should be friends with somebody or somebody should be friends with me, like maybe Facebook friends or LinkedIn friends, then I guess it's we experience, particularly with that kind of friends. So let's stick with that. Then the value is limited. Once you start to talk about friendship from the fact that you care, so from the heart, that there is like a profound respect, and then imagine what would happen if you were to talk about friendship from the perspective of love. I mean, I've been doing that now for 25 years or something like that. And I find that whenever I experience that kind of relationship with clients or with others, that it has a greater value. It becomes more valuable. There is more grace. So there is. So it is twofold. On the one hand, it is simply from a mathematical perspective, or yeah, just a very calculated perspective. There is more value in when you can connect not only from the head, but also from the heart, and also from the whole, from the soul. So that is one. And secondly, even if you find it hard to understand, which I do find it sometimes hard to understand what this holistic or spirituality element is, I think it is there. There is a lot. We see, at least when I look around me, I see miracles quite often, and I don't always understand them. But looking at them with grace, it makes me appreciate the divine in them, and understand it's there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would like to close with one question that you partially have already answered without me asking it, but maybe we find an interesting twist there again. And that is the question of if you would have to describe this journey, the 22 days of grace, with an image or a metaphor or a symbol, what would that be?
Well, the metaphor I already used was the one of the map. So do you draw a map, then you draw maybe it's I talked about a detail map, but maybe it's like a legenda. So you draw the obstacles and the pros and whatever you may encounter. So the explanation of what's going to happen in your map, and then there is like it's a guidebook. Now, if I were to think, I mean, what would be a representation of the 22 grays in any shape or form? Very interesting that for me, it is because the images that comes to mind is the song from, I think its name is Gerard Schöne. It's called Der Laden. And it talks about, and it sings, the song is about, there's so many things that we know, but we need sometimes insights, we need situations, we need voices, we need instructions, whatever you want to call it, people that help us to understand the situation. And I'm referring here to the point that I think that what I have learned in this program about my work, play, and the joy. And there's an interesting thing that I forgot. I know I did 4 things, but I forget one all the time, and it doesn't come back. But that's okay. So these 3 things apparently are very important. is that I've been aware of that. Maybe I've been relying too much, and this is where the relation to the song is, I've been relying too much on others providing me that. So as if I could buy it in a store. And in his song, there is actually a salesperson in the song says, you can buy and you find everything here, but you cannot buy it as a finished product. You can only buy the seeds. And you will have to do it. That's my interpretation. You will have to grow them yourselves. So the 22 days of grace, and I said, I'm not hung up on the number of days. The 22 days of grace have provided me with seeds to start growing my own understanding of joy, of work, of play, of space. That was the fourth one, of space. Nobody else can give me that. So that's the other metaphor. So it's the one hand, it's the map, and the second one is the realization that these things are like seeds that I have to grow and nurture and take care of myself. And only if I do that, they may grow into the things that bear fruit and help me to make a next step in my life.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Very insightful. So thanks for your time and your answers, and thanks for participating.
My pleasure. It was a joy. It was a joy. So I highly recommend it for anyone who wants to try this out. I think, first of all, you'll enjoy it. Well, you will enjoy it if you're prepared to start working in the garden and sow the seeds that will help you to harvest fruits later on.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.